it's, I'll ask him how to play something, and then he just proceeds to be Eddie Van Halen.
Wolfgang Van Halen was born into a legacy too loud to ever fade away. Being the son of a rock god meant music wasn't just part of his life, it was his heartbeat. While the world watched Eddie Van Halen melt faces with every guitar solo, Wolfgang was quietly living a story nobody could have imagined. Behind the blinding stage lights, who was Eddie when the amps were turned off? And why did Wolfgang make that emotional promise to never play a single Van Halen song after his dad passed away? This is the side of Wolfgang Van Halen the world rarely dares to uncover, the story that hits deeper than any guitar riff. From the very beginning, Wolfgang's life was anything but normal. Eddie Van Halen wasn't just another musician. He was the guitarist, the man who changed rock forever. His mom, Valerie Bertinelli, was already a household name, glowing on TV screens across America. Fame wasn't something Wolfgang had to chase. It was already waiting at his doorstep. But behind all the glitz and flashing lights, his childhood was surprisingly calm, filled with curiosity, laughter, and a bond with his dad that couldn't be broken, no matter how loud the world got. Music didn't just surround Wolfgang, it lived inside him. While most kids were humming along to cartoons, he was feeling the pulse of hard rock thundering through the house. But Eddie wasn't that pushy, follow my path kind of dad. He wanted Wolfgang to find his own groove, his own sound. The guitars, drums, and amps were all just there, waiting for the moment he felt ready to make some noise. And when that moment came, it was pure magic. At only 9 years old, Wolfgang sat behind a drum kit, not because anyone told him to, but because he wanted to understand it. No instructors, no sheet music, just him, the sticks, and that natural rhythm pumping through his veins. On his 10th birthday, Eddie gifted him his first real drum set, and that wasn't just a present, it was a message. That moment said, "This is our thing." Their connection didn't need words. It spoke through every beat, every crash of the cymbals. Wolfgang once revealed that his dad would record small guitar riffs on an old tape recorder, and little Wolfgang, barely a preteen, would try to match the rhythm on the drums. Those sessions were unforgettable. It wasn't about showing off or chasing fame, just a father and son vibing through music, speaking a secret language only they understood. But Wolfgang wasn't one to stop at drums. He wanted more. He taught himself guitar, bass, and even piano, mastering each one with the same passion that had fueled his dad for decades. And it wasn't about proving anything. It was about love for the sound itself. He'd lock himself in a room for hours, playing until something clicked, until the music felt right. He wasn't lost in Eddie Van Halen's massive shadow. He was carving his own name into the walls of that legendary house, one note at a time. By his early teens, it was clear Wolfgang wasn't just another kid living off his dad's fame. He had the same gift for rhythm and melody, but he also had something fresh, his own fire, his own truth. He didn't just play music, he lived it with every fiber of his being. That's what made him so different, so raw, so real, and unforgettable to anyone who truly listened. Then came 2006, and everything flipped for Wolfgang Van Halen. At just 15 years old, his natural-born talent burst onto the world stage when he joined Van Halen as the band's new bassist, replacing longtime member Michael Anthony. That news hit the rock world like a thunderclap. Some fans were hyped, others skeptical. Was it just a family move, or was there something deeper? But those close to Eddie and Wolfgang knew the truth. It wasn't favoritism, it was evolution. The next chapter of Van Halen wasn't about repeating history. It was about rewriting it, one blazing note at a time. Wolfgang grew up with Van Halen running through his veins. Every riff, every solo, every lyric, it was like they were written in his DNA. So when he finally stepped into the band, he wasn't walking into a stranger's world. He was stepping into something that had shaped his entire life. People on the outside might have thought it was an easy ride or a lucky break, but they couldn't have been more wrong. What they didn't see were the endless hours of practice, the late-night jam sessions, and that unbreakable father-son bond that built the foundation for everything he became. Touring with Van Halen wasn't just another gig. It was stepping straight into rock history. Imagine being just a teenager and sharing the stage with your dad, one of the most legendary guitarists to ever live, while thousands of fans scream your name. That kind of pressure could crush anyone, but not Wolfgang. He didn't let the fame or expectations get to him. He played with power, soul, and heart that couldn't be faked. Even the toughest critics, those who doubted him from day one, had to admit it. Wolfgang brought something fresh to Van Halen. His grounded energy gave the band a new pulse, keeping their legacy alive while making it hit differently for a new generation. Then came 2012, a game-changing year. Van Halen dropped A Different Kind of Truth, their first studio album in over 14 years, and Wolfgang's bass lines hit like thunder. His tone had confidence, creativity, and serious groove. He wasn't trying to mimic Michael Anthony or ride his dad's coattails. He was defining his own lane. His playing supported Eddie's fiery guitar work perfectly without ever overshadowing it, proving once and for all that he wasn't just in Van Halen. He earned his spot there. But behind all the flashing lights and roaring crowds, life wasn't picture perfect. Wolfgang had a front row seat to his father's health struggles, and that reality hit hard. Eddie's battle with illness became harder to hide, but his passion for music, that never died, not for a second. Even when his energy faded, even when treatments wore him down, he refused to give up that stage. Especially when it meant sharing it with his son, it kept him alive in every sense. Years later, Wolfgang would open up about how those tours meant the world to both of them. It wasn't just about rocking out. It was about time, memories, and love. They'd travel together, laugh between rehearsals, eat, talk, and then step out under those blinding lights as a team. Every single show felt sacred, like they were freezing precious memories in sound. Deep down, they both knew time wasn't on their side, but they refused to let that truth steal their joy. Every performance became a celebration of what they still had together. For Wolfgang, joining Van Halen was never about chasing fame or rewriting history. It was about something much deeper. It was about carrying his father's legacy with honor, not through speeches or fame, but through the same sound that connected them from the start. He didn't step into Van Halen to replace anyone. He stepped in to respect what was built, to protect it, and to live it with everything he had. Before Eddie Van Halen came along, guitar solos were just flashy stunts, quick moments to show off skill and speed.
This is the first guitar of my dad's that he gave me.
But after Eddie, everything changed. His solos weren't just performances. They were wild, emotional rides, roller coasters full of fire, chaos, and heart. He didn't play for ego or applause. He played out of pure curiosity. To him, the guitar wasn't just an instrument. It was a mystery box, a puzzle with no instructions. Eddie once said he treated it like a never-ending experiment, and that's exactly how he lived, fearlessly chasing new sounds every single day. Eddie was the kind of man who didn't wait around for the perfect gear. He built it himself. Out of spare parts, duct tape, and pure imagination, he created the now legendary Frankenstrat. That guitar wasn't just an instrument. It was a reflection of who he was. Inventive, rebellious, and absolutely unstoppable. He'd twist knobs, mess with wiring, and bend notes in ways no one had even dreamed of. Every strange sound he stumbled upon felt like discovering a whole new world in the universe of rock and roll. Then came 1982, the year that stamped Eddie Van Halen's name into pop culture forever. When Michael Jackson called him in to lay down a solo for Beat It, Eddie didn't overthink it for a second. He strolled into the studio, listened to the track a few times, and unleashed one of the most electrifying solos ever recorded. That lightning-fast solo didn't just elevate the song, it became a defining sound of the decade. And here's the wildest part. Eddie didn't even take a paycheck for it. He didn't need the money or the fame. He did it because he loved creating, loved surprising people, loved turning sound into something unforgettable. That thrill, the rush of making music come alive, was always the fire that kept him going. But behind all the genius, there was a darker storm brewing. The same creative fire that made Eddie unstoppable also burned him from the inside. He fought a long, painful battle with addiction, years of alcohol and substance use that sometimes numbed the pain and sometimes fueled the art. His struggles weren't always tabloid gossip, but they were real and constant. There were nights that bled into mornings in the studio, days where exhaustion took over, moments where even he couldn't hold it all together. His bandmates noticed, his family worried, yet Eddie kept playing, always hiding behind the music, using it as both armor and escape. Eddie later spoke openly and painfully about those years. He confessed that during Van Halen's wildest days, he'd sometimes hit the stage drunk, not because he didn't care, but because he couldn't stop. The pressure of being Eddie Van Halen, the legend, the genius, the icon, was crushing. Every show meant living up to the myth he'd created, and that kind of weight could break anyone. His perfectionism became both his power and his prison, trapping him between brilliance and burnout. And that intensity didn't just stay inside him, it spilled into everything around him. Van Halen wasn't just famous for its music, it was known for its chaos, too. The endless fights, the lineup changes, the clashing egos, all of it had Eddie right in the center. But he wasn't being difficult just to cause trouble. He simply wanted greatness. He believed the music deserved nothing less than perfection, no matter the cost. As a father, Eddie Van Halen showed a completely different side of himself, gentle, warm, and sometimes even fragile. No matter how rough life got, even in the darkest moments of his addiction, Wolfgang said his dad never stopped being present. They'd sit down for meals, crack jokes, jam in the studio, and just exist as father and son. But Wolfgang never sugarcoated it. It wasn't perfect. There were days when the weight of Eddie's struggles was too heavy to hide, when the music went silent and the exhaustion took over. Still, through all the chaos, that bond between them never broke. It was the one rhythm that never faded. Then came the early 2000s, when life hit Eddie harder than ever. He was diagnosed with tongue cancer, a battle that forced him to undergo surgery that removed part of his tongue. For a while, it seemed like he had beaten it, and fans celebrated, hoping the nightmare was over. But fate wasn't done testing him. His hip began to fail, needing surgery, and his energy started slipping away. Yet Eddie refused to back down. He kept writing, recording, performing, because music was the one thing he could still control, the one weapon he could always rely on. Behind the curtain, though, there was something deeper, a growing fear. Eddie became anxious about his health and his future. The stage lights that once thrilled him started to feel like too much. He began stepping back, avoiding interviews, skipping public events, and locking himself away in his home studio, the one space where he could still breathe, still create, still feel alive. But those close to him saw the truth. Eddie wasn't just physically tired, he was emotionally drained. Decades of pressure, fame, regrets, and personal battles had built up inside him, and the cracks were starting to show. Still, even as the clock ticked down, Eddie never stopped creating. He poured everything he had left into his music, filling hard drives with riffs, solos, and unfinished songs that no one's ever heard. Some say he knew time was slipping away, that he was racing against it, determined to leave something behind that meant more than fame or legacy. Those recordings weren't just for the world, they were for Wolfgang. Because underneath all the chaos, addiction, and pain, Eddie's greatest love wasn't his fame or his guitar. It was his son. To Eddie, Wolfgang wasn't just a bandmate. He was his anchor, the reason he kept fighting. When the darkness closed in, Wolfgang was that light pulling him back to life. Eddie once hinted that watching his son rise gave him something he'd been chasing for years: redemption. It was like he got a second shot, not just at music, but at being the man he wanted to be. Through Wolfgang, Eddie finally found the peace he'd been searching for all his life. But Eddie's story wasn't just about guitars, fame, and addiction. It was also about love. The kind that lifted him up, tore him down, and lingered in every chord he ever played. Behind all the headlines and hit songs were the women who shaped him, tested him, and inspired some of his most emotional music. The most famous of those stories began in 1981, when Eddie married actress Valerie Bertinelli, a TV star America adored from her hit sitcom One Day at a Time. Their wedding was front-page news, the ultimate rock meets Hollywood fairy tale. For a while, they were the power couple everyone admired, rock royalty and America's sweetheart. But behind the glam and the smiles, things weren't as perfect as they looked. Fame kept them apart, pressure weighed heavy, and Eddie's battles with addiction started to tear through the cracks of their marriage. What once looked like a dream love story slowly turned into something real, beautiful, painful, and far from simple. Out of that wild, complicated love story came the one thing Eddie Van Halen and Valerie Bertinelli cherished more than anything: their son, Wolfgang. Eddie named him after his all-time musical idol, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. And that name wasn't just for style, it was deep. Eddie had always admired how Mozart blended flawless technique with pure emotion, turning perfection into passion that could shake your soul. Naming his son Wolfgang was Eddie's way of passing down that same energy, a message of music, legacy, and love that would last far longer than fame ever could. Eddie wasn't just raising a kid. He was shaping the next chapter of a dynasty. From the moment Wolfgang came into the world, music wasn't something he'd stumble upon later. It was already in his blood. But as time went on, that once happy rhythm inside the Van Halen home started to crack. The endless tours, the chaos of the rock and roll grind, and Eddie's ongoing fight with addiction all created a distance that love alone couldn't always fix. By 2001, Eddie and Valerie's marriage began to crumble, and by 2007, it was officially over. But what made their story powerful wasn't how it ended. It was how they kept showing up for each other afterward. They refused to let bitterness win. Even through heartbreak, they stood side by side for their son. As co-parents, they made sure Wolfgang stayed grounded, protected, and surrounded by love, even with cameras and headlines chasing their every move. Valerie often spoke about Eddie with this tender mix of heartbreak and respect. She never pretended it was perfect. She admitted there was pain, chaos, and struggle. But she always made one thing clear: their love was real. When Eddie passed away in 2020, Valerie's tribute to him hit the entire world right in the heart. She wrote, "Maybe next time we'll get it right." Just 7 simple words, but they carried decades of love, loss, forgiveness, and longing. That one sentence said everything, a reminder that some connections never really die. They just change shape. Later, Eddie found peace again. In 2009, he married Janie Lisewski, a publicist and former stuntwoman who stepped into his life like a breath of calm. Their relationship wasn't about flash or headlines. It was grounded, private, and full of care. Through Eddie's toughest health battles, Janie stood firm beside him, bringing warmth into the chaos. For the first time in decades, Eddie had quiet mornings, slow days, and moments of stillness that felt like healing. She helped him find something he hadn't felt in years: real peace. For Wolfgang, watching all of this unfold was life-changing. He saw the beauty and the heartbreak of his father's world up close, the love stories, the fallouts, the second chances. He learned that love isn't supposed to be perfect. It's supposed to be real, He saw arguments turn into laughter, silence turn into forgiveness, and pain turn into understanding. And instead of hardening him, it opened his heart. It made him see the world through deeper eyes. That emotional depth shaped everything about who Wolfgang became. In 2023, he married his longtime partner, Andrea Alsop, a brilliant software engineer who'd been his steady rock through it all. She stood beside him through the grief of losing his father, the grind of launching his solo career, and the challenge of carrying one of the biggest last names in rock history. Their wedding wasn't about fame or press. It was quiet, simple, and full of love. But one single moment from that day said it all. Wolfgang left an empty chair at the ceremony for his dad. No big speech, no tears in front of cameras, just a chair. That silent tribute spoke louder than any words ever could. It was his way of saying, "You're still here, Dad." For Wolfgang, love has never just been about romance. It's about remembrance, about carrying forward the pieces of where he came from while still carving out his own path. Every lesson his parents ever taught him, the pain, the forgiveness, the resilience, became the foundation of how he lives and loves today. In Andrea, he found someone who doesn't just understand his past. She respects it. She helps him carry it with pride, never seeing his history as baggage, but as proof of how far he's come. She loves not just the musician, but the man who fought through grief and chaos to find peace again. By opening himself up to love, Wolfgang found something even more powerful, healing. His father's relationships had been complicated, sure, but they were real. They were built on effort, forgiveness, loyalty, and that messy kind of love that doesn't always look perfect, but somehow lasts anyway. Now, as Wolfgang builds his own life and future, you can see those lessons shining through. The way he treats Andrea with patience, gratitude, and respect shows he learned what love really means. It's not about perfection. It's about staying when things get tough and finding strength in each other, just like his parents tried to do for years. But when Eddie Van Halen's long battle with cancer finally came to an end, Wolfgang faced a kind of silence that words can't describe. No more calls, no more jam sessions, no more laughter echoing through the studio. Just quiet, heavy and hollow, filled with memories too big to fit inside a single moment. On October 6th, 2020, the world lost a guitar legend, but for Wolfgang, it was so much deeper. That day, he didn't just lose an icon. He lost his dad, his mentor, his best friend, all at once. Eddie Van Halen passed away at 65 after years of fighting a brutal private battle with cancer. Officially, the cause was a stroke, but the truth is, Eddie had been fighting for far longer than most people knew, through endless surgeries, treatments, and pain that rarely left his face, even when he smiled for the cameras. Behind that grin was a man holding on for as long as he could, pushing through the pain just to keep being Dad a little longer. When the final moment came, Wolfgang and Valerie Bertinelli were right there beside him, hands wrapped around his, whispering words of love as he took his last breath. It was peaceful, but for Wolfgang, that peace came with heartbreak that shattered his world. In that instant, he didn't just lose the man who taught him to play guitar. He lost the one person who always saw him for himself, not as Eddie Van Halen's kid, but as Wolfgang, his son. After his dad's passing, Wolfgang's life went quiet in a way fame could never fill. Grief moved in and made itself at home. When he finally broke his silence, his words crushed hearts across the world. He said, "I've had so many dreams lately where Pop and I are just doing normal things. And then I realize it's a dream. I stop whatever I'm doing and hug him for as long as I can, until I wake up. He was the best father I could ever ask for. Every moment I shared with him, on and off stage, was a gift." Those words hit like a wave, raw, simple, and painfully honest. They captured what millions felt, but only one son could truly understand. But privately, the grief cut even deeper. Wolfgang later explained that losing his father wasn't something that faded. It was something that just sat in the center of his life and refused to move. It didn't shrink, didn't soften, it just stayed. Every stage he stepped onto, every song he played, every success he earned, all of it was haunted by that empty space his dad used to fill. Music became both his comfort and his curse. It healed him while reminding him of what he'd lost. Fame couldn't numb it, and time couldn't erase it. The silence left behind by Eddie Van Halen was louder than any amp Wolfgang would ever plug into. When Eddie was cremated, his ashes were given to Wolfgang, a gesture that spoke volumes without a single word. It wasn't just about tradition or family, it was about trust. Those ashes weren't merely remains, they were a message, a final handoff from father to son. Eddie didn't just leave behind music, he left responsibility, legacy, and love wrapped in that silent, sacred gift. It was his way of saying, "You carry me now." Wolfgang took his father's ashes to Malibu, the place Eddie Van Halen had always called his sanctuary. With the ocean wind brushing against his face and waves crashing hard against the rocks, he stood there in silence and let his father go. As the ashes scattered into the sea, Eddie's spirit seemed to blend with the endless blue, a final return to the peace he'd always found by the water. But grief didn't fade with that moment, it deepened. Because after the ceremonies, when the crowd disappeared and the condolences stopped, Wolfgang was left alone in that empty space between love and loss, trying to learn how to exist in a world that suddenly felt too quiet without his dad in it. Months later, talk started spreading across the industry, plans for a massive Van Halen tribute concert, something legendary, something worthy of Eddie's name. But when everyone assumed Wolfgang would take the stage to perform his father's songs, he stunned the world with one bold decision. He refused. Not a single Van Halen song, not one note. It wasn't defiance. It wasn't pride. It was love, raw and loyal. In one interview, Wolfgang explained it perfectly. He said, "Songwriting is a very therapeutic thing for me. I can get through things that I can't through talking or otherwise. That's a big reason why I don't ever want to play Van Halen songs, because I only want to play with my father, and he's not here to play it." That single quote said everything. For Wolfgang, Van Halen wasn't just a band, it was his father. Every chord, every riff, every lyric was tied to moments they'd shared. Playing those songs without him would have felt hollow, like pretending a wound didn't exist. So instead of chasing nostalgia, Wolfgang turned inward. He poured his grief, his love, and his memories into new music, his own music. Songwriting became his therapy, his way of keeping his dad's spirit alive without reopening the pain every time he picked up a guitar. To Wolfgang, performing Van Halen songs without Eddie beside him wouldn't be a tribute. It would feel like a lie. Playing those iconic riffs alone would have been like hearing an echo with no voice behind it. So he made a choice to move forward, not backward. He decided that the truest way to honor his dad wasn't to replay the past, but to create something new, something that carried Eddie's fire, but burned with Wolfgang's own light. That choice sparked the birth of Mammoth WVH, Wolfgang's solo project, named after Mammoth, the very first band Eddie Van Halen played in before the world even knew his name. But this wasn't some throwback gimmick. It was a full-circle legacy moment that connected father and son forever. Wolfgang revealed, "Growing up, I told my dad that when I had my own band, I'm calling it Mammoth, and here we are." That one line hit like destiny. It wasn't just a name, it was a promise finally kept. Then came Distance. Released only a month after Eddie's passing, it was the first song the world ever heard from Mammoth WVH, and it hit with pure emotional power. Wolfgang never meant for it to be part of an album. He wrote it during his father's final months as a personal goodbye, a musical letter straight from his heart. The lyrics were tender, aching, and honest, but what truly tore people apart was the music video. It wasn't full of glam or concert footage. It was home videos, old grainy clips of Eddie and Wolfgang together, laughing, playing, living life. No fame, no spotlight, just love caught on film. For millions of fans, it was the first time they'd seen Eddie Van Halen not as the unstoppable guitar god, but as Dad, the man behind the legend. And for Wolfgang, that was the only kind of tribute that ever felt real. No arena lights, no massive stage, just truth, raw and beautiful. The world felt it instantly. Distance went viral, racking up millions of views and eventually earning Wolfgang his first ever Grammy nomination. It was a moment that should have been pure triumph, a sign that he'd truly stepped into his own as an artist. But for Wolfgang, it wasn't celebration. It was bittersweet. That Grammy nod didn't feel like victory. It felt like standing in a dream where someone important was missing. He said it himself. It felt surreal, like living in another lifetime, one where his dad should have still been there, cheering him on from the crowd. Wolfgang didn't stop. He pushed forward with fire in his heart. In 2021, he dropped his self-titled debut album, Mammoth WVH, and it hit the rock world like a wave. This wasn't some nostalgic throwback or a rehash of Van Halen's sound. It was something new, something real. Tight, sharp, and packed with emotion, the record carried raw honesty and massive heart. Every song sounded like a piece of Wolfgang's soul, pain, hope, love, and resilience stitched together through riffs that spoke louder than words. Critics didn't just like it, they respected it. They called it mature, fearless, and deeply personal. And the craziest part, Wolfgang did it all himself. Every guitar riff, every drum beat, every bass line, every harmony, it was all him. No bandmates, no ghostwriters, no outside help. This wasn't some famous son cashing in moment. This was a full-on statement. This is who I am. He wasn't trying to copy his father's sound or chase the Van Halen magic that defined a generation. Instead, he carved out his own space, music that nodded to the past while stepping boldly into the future. Even during interviews, Wolfgang made one thing crystal clear. His father's influence was always with him, but not like a shadow hanging overhead. It was a light guiding him forward. Eddie had told him countless times, "Don't worry about living up to the name, just be yourself." That advice became his anchor. It gave him the strength to block out the noise, ignore expectations, and walk his own path with pride and purpose. That mindset didn't just shape his debut, it defined his entire career. Every performance, every lyric, every moment Wolfgang refused to turn Mammoth WVH into a Van Halen tribute act proved something powerful. Grief doesn't have to scream to be felt. It can whisper. It can live quietly between the notes in those spaces where love never fades. Wolfgang showed the world that honoring someone's legacy isn't always about recreating their sound. It's about creating something new that keeps their spirit alive in every single chord. Now, years after Eddie's passing, Wolfgang is still healing. That loss never disappeared. It just changed shape. But right when fans thought the story had reached its quiet ending, Wolfgang did something no one expected. He opened up about his dad in a way that was brutally honest, heartfelt, and stripped of all showmanship. His tribute wasn't about fireworks or fame. It was about truth. For years, the world had been waiting for a massive Van Halen tribute event. Everyone had theories. Would there be a huge concert, a star-packed reunion, maybe a tribute album filled with rock legends? But when the time came, Wolfgang's choice surprised everyone. The tribute had already been happening, silently, beautifully, and consistently. It wasn't about stages or spotlights. It lived inside every song he wrote, every lyric he sang, every time he refused to let grief shut him down. In his own words, Wolfgang explained it perfectly. I think just doing what I do is enough of a reference and tribute. Just me existing and continuing to be my own person and my own musical space. I don't think people realize that. Me just doing that is enough of a tribute and respect toward the life he gave me and the passion he instilled in me. Those words hit deep. He wasn't trying to replace his father or chase his fame. He was honoring him by living, by creating, by keeping the fire burning in his own way. At first, some fans didn't get it. They wanted the big gestures, the reunion tours, the Van Halen covers, the nostalgic nods to the past. But the ones who really listened understood exactly what he meant. He didn't need to cover Panama or Jump to show love. Every song he wrote was a message. Every show was a tribute. Every lyric was a conversation between a son and his father that never truly ended. It was Wolfgang's way of saying, "Dad, I heard you. I'm still carrying it forward." Sure, that approach confused some and even frustrated a few critics, especially those who expected him to lean into Van Halen's legacy on stage. But Wolfgang stood his ground. This wasn't rebellion, it was respect. He understood that Van Halen's music was sacred, something tied directly to his father's spirit. Playing it without Eddie there would have felt wrong, like trying to wake a legend who deserved his rest. But no matter how strong or grounded you are, fame always brings noise, and Wolfgang's had to deal with plenty of it. One casual joke he made about his dad, saying Eddie ruined the 80s because every guitarist tried to copy him, spiraled completely out of control online. It was meant as a playful shout-out to how much Eddie had changed the entire music scene, but the internet twisted it into something harsh and negative. Suddenly, headlines were everywhere, and people were missing the heart behind what he actually said. Wolfgang didn't let that slide. He stepped up fast and set the record straight. He reminded everyone loud and clear that no one on this planet admired Eddie Van Halen more than he did. That "ruined the 80s" line wasn't shade, it was respect. He was celebrating the fact that his dad's talent was so unreal, it literally changed an entire generation of guitarists. But moments like that show the tightrope Wolfgang has to walk every single day, honoring one of the greatest musicians ever, while still trying to be recognized as his own artist. Carrying the Van Halen name isn't just an honor, it's a heavy weight. Wolfgang's been open about how tough it can be, the pressure, the constant comparisons, the unrealistic expectations. Everyone wants him to be the next Eddie Van Halen, but he's not trying to fill those impossible shoes. He's not Eddie's replacement. He's Wolfgang Van Halen, carving out his own legacy with heart, honesty, and soul. Through all the grief, headlines, and noise, he's shown the world that greatness doesn't have to look the same twice. And through every high and low, one thing's been constant: family. One person in particular has stayed a strong presence in his life. His uncle, Alex Van Halen, Eddie's brother, and the thunder behind Van Halen's legendary sound. Alex may have stepped out of the public eye since Eddie's passing, but behind the scenes, he's been there for Wolfgang every step of the way, quietly supporting him, offering advice, and keeping that deep Van Halen bond alive. It's family loyalty at its strongest. Wolfgang's story is more than a tale about fame. It's about love, loss, and legacy. It's a reminder that you don't need to live in someone's shadow to keep their light shining bright. Every note he plays is a memory. Every lyric is a conversation, and every song is a tribute, not just to Eddie Van Halen, but to what it means to grow, heal, and carry the torch forward. He's proof that honoring the past doesn't mean getting stuck in it. It means building something new on top of everything that came before. So now we want to hear from you. What's your favorite memory of Eddie Van Halen? Which moment, solo or performance, still gives you chills? Drop your answers in the comments below. We love hearing your stories and seeing which Van Halen moments still hit your heart. And hey, if you enjoyed this deep dive into the powerful story of Wolfgang and Eddie Van Halen, don't forget to like this video, leave a comment, and subscribe to our channel for more stories about music legends who changed the world. Smash that bell icon so you never miss an update. And as always, thank you for watching. We'll catch you in the next video.